Hi, I'm Steve Miller from the UK. Welcome to the second podcast in this series of conversations with five-star Pirelli professional David Lichman. In the last episode, we discussed the difference between anticipation and assumption. We also promised to talk about how this relates to Temple Grandin's latest book, Animals Make Us Human. And we also have a great question from David Rotermund of Fairplay, California. So, welcome, David.
Hello.
I wish I hadn't taught you that joke. You're going to have to explain that, sometime.
Perhaps in the next podcast, yes.
Okay, we'll do the next podcast because no one outside of the United Kingdom is going to understand that. Okay, we want to know why you want to discuss Temple Grandin's latest book. Where's the connection between the two?
Well, we were talking about anticipation versus assumption.
Yes.
And it helps that I'm in the middle of reading the book at the moment, so it was forefront in my mind. And in this book, she discusses animal behavior and adopts the patterns of emotions that have been identified by Dr. Jaak Panksepp, a neuroscientist at Washington State University. He wrote a book called Effective Neuroscience. And it's not science, it's theory, but it makes, like all things, it makes for a good metaphor.
Yeah.
And his metaphor talks about the blue ribbon emotions. There are 4: seeking, rage, fear, and panic. And I'll focus mostly in on the seeking emotion because it's a little bit different than what we've been taught about the pleasure centers. Animals that will push a button that's wired to the pleasure center keep pushing the button and not eat.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, they identified that really what's happening is that seeking is a very pleasurable emotion in and of itself. It's not having the thing. It's the hunt. It's the chasing. It's the wanting.
Yes.
And what's really interesting is that she talks about the anticipation. Is more pleasurable.
Yes.
than the actual having.
That reminds me of there's a quote from Winnie the Pooh. There's always a quote from Winnie the Pooh. But there's something like, "What's your favourite thing, Pooh?" And he thinks and thoughts for a little while and eventually says, "Honey." And then he corrects himself and says, "Actually, it's the thought of honey."
Uh-huh.
Similar?
Yes. Seeking is always about something you don't have yet, whether it's food and shelter or a Christmas present on the way.
And can we click on your website and buy a copy of this book?
Actually, you can.
Excellent.
Small wonders, yes.
Yeah, well done.
I think I make 15 cents if you buy a copy of the book. Amazon pays me 15 cents. Anyway, so I thought it was interesting because one of the things that came out of the conversation that I hadn't thought about until we started talking about it was this idea that if you have anticipation, you add enthusiasm to the behavior.
Yes, I remember you making that point. Yeah.
Right, and I had never thought about it, and it just all of a sudden clicked that this is also, it ties nicely to the seeking system under this system that she discusses, and she goes through all the animals, the pigs, cats, dogs, horses, and cows, and how each of them has a different propensity towards or away from one of these systems. And there's 3 more systems. Lust means sex and sexual desire. Care is Dr. Panksepp's term for maternal love and caretaking.
Yeah.
And then she has a discussion of play, which is kind of vague because she says nobody really knows what play is. but in terms of animal welfare, it's hard to define what's good for an animal and what's not good for an animal. So what she says is if you can keep this seeking system stimulated, it will offset the fear system. And that she has an example with the cattle that they're both curious and afraid. They're both seeking and fearful at the same time. So they'll get curious about something and they'll want to put their nose on it and they'll want to be investigating it, and then it'll move a little bit and they'll run away.
Yes.
But it doesn't scare them away completely. They want to go back and see what is it really. So it's this flipping back and forth that she talks about. I found it very interesting. And so if you want to have animals as best we can, and she designs systems to help bring animals to slaughter in a humane way. So we're just trying to say, what's the most humane way to treat these animals? Minimize fear, panic, and rage.
Yes.
Maximize seeking and play.
Yeah.
And they tend to offset each other. So if you have maximum seeking and play, then you won't have the other negative emotions.
So in zoos, when they kind of have more natural environments these days and look to hiding the food that the animals have rather than just chucking the huge amount of meat into the lion and the lion just sits there and doesn't get any exercise, they start to hide them up in trees and things. Is that the kind of seeking behavior we're talking about?
Exactly. In fact, I participated in a little group when we were at the ABMA conference in San Diego. We went to the San Diego Zoo and the Wildlife Park. And
can you just tell us what AB stands for?
ABMA, yeah. Animal Behavior Management Alliance.
Oh, thank you. Right, okay.
And that's a group of individuals who work in the industry of animal care. I was surprised to see at the meetings people from the UK, people from all over the world.
Oh, wow.
That run mostly zoos, animal display, entertainment shows.
Sure.
Like
sure.
SeaWorld,
yes.
And that kind of thing. But also, there was a large community of research animal caretakers.
Oh, okay.
And they said, some of the things that these animals have to do is not very nice.
Mm.
And it's our job to see how can we help them as best as possible.
Yes.
So they were working in, because they said typically the researchers don't care. And that they just want to get the results and whatever physically it takes to restrain the animal or whatever it is. So I was really thrilled to meet these people who have dedicated their lives to making the lives of research animals more pleasant. That was really great to see. Very talented people at this convention. We can talk about that a little bit in a minute if you remind me.
Okay.
Because I did the presentation for them with Dr. Jennifer Hurley.
All right.
And she's now Dr. Zeligs, actually,
mm-hmm.
who's taught me a lot about behavioral psychology. And, I'll just share it now because it's a fun story.
Okay, go ahead.
We got to present this film that we made together. And I got up to speak in front of all these people, and they had all done these incredible presentations of the things they had done. For example, teaching a lion to stick his paw through the bars of the cage so it could be presented for radiographs.
Yes.
And in fact, they later on went and visited that lion. And you don't know what it feels like to be in the presence of a lion until you've had one, inches from your face, who's decided he wants another cookie.
Yes, yes.
The roar that he lets out makes the hair on your whole body stand up. It's just amazing. And for them to be working with him day in, day out, they were using bridge and target training, and they were using cheap fly swatters from the dollar store as targets because, first of all, they had no budget, being from a zoo.
Yes.
So it's at the Oakland Zoo, actually, in Oakland, California, near San Francisco. And so the dollar store, I don't know if they have those over there, but
yes.
Everything in the store is $1.
Yes.
And you can get like 5 fly swatters for $1. So that if he grabs one and pulls it in and destroys it, it's not a big financial loss.
Yes. And it kind of prevents positive punishment, doesn't it? Because it just wouldn't work with a lion.
No.
You'd just upset it, wouldn't you?
Yes, it would. Anyway, so I digress. So there are all these fabulous presentations, and I get up there, and I look around the room, and I said, I feel a little bit humbled to be here because the person who just gave the talk right before me trained a gorilla to hand her newborn infant gorilla through the bars of the cage to the veterinarian for inspection.
Good grief.
And I trained my pony to sit on a bale of hay.
Did they understand your dilemma?
Yes, but then I said, but the reality is, now that I think about it, is that I don't train animals for a living. I teach people, which makes me a primate trainer, which puts me on the same level as all of you. And then I proceeded with the demonstration. We won an award for that presentation. It was very flattering.
So was it ever filmed, or has it been captured and documented?
The film that I presented is in my possession, and if you come to my clinics, you'll see it.
That's the only way to see it, folks.
At the moment, that's the only way to see it. And I've been threatening to release it, but I have to get some music rights. There's 6 songs on there that need to get music rights. And
have we whetted any appetites today? They have to get hold of you at info@davidlichman.com and start a little campaign.
Yes.
Right, okay.
Great. Pre-orders. We accept pre-orders.
Pre-orders.
$15 for the video. To make the checks out to Bernie Madoff. And Steve and I will be retired in the Bahamas.
It's a deal.
Yes. Okay, so the reason I brought that up was because they took us over to the elephant compound, and they lock the elephants up in their staging area, and they give this entire group of animal behaviorists all the treats and food for the elephants, and let us loose in the elephant area.
Great.
And we go running around, and we climbing trees and climbing things and sticking little treats and crevices and cracks. And we spent about an hour doing that.
This needs to be filmed too.
Yes. And then we all get back, and we get into the safe area, and they let the elephants out, and they immediately go running around. Everybody's wondering, I wonder if he'll find mine. And it's probably more stimulating to the seeking system of the humans.
Yes, I was thinking that. Yes, exactly.
Even than the elephants, but it works for both. So it was very, very good. It's great for animal outreach to bring kids there and let them do that, and it's great for the elephants, and it's great for the staff because they don't have to do it. Yes, so I think that's exactly right as part of the enrichment.
The seeking system.
Yeah, and she goes into more detail about this in the book. I'm not really qualified to speak on it. I will tell you that in the dog chapter, she talks about Cesar Millan.
Oh yes,
the dog whisperer, and which is kind of a very you must dominate the animals and whatnot. And she gives him high praise and also tears him a new one.
Oh,
in the same page. So it's a very interesting book to read. She talks a little bit about that the dogs don't need a pack leader.
Really?
That the dogs need a mother-father figure. And that's the way that the dogs usually live. She says, however, there are situations where the dogs are not in families, like a random pack of unrelated individuals.
Yes.
And in those circumstances, Caesar's system seems to hold true. And if you look at how Caesar's dog psychology center is, it's 25 unrelated dogs in that situation. And so it does work.
So in the wild, you might get a lot of bachelor dogs who haven't gone to find their own packs or something, roaming around together, something like that. It could happen in the wild. I see that. Yeah.
Yes, it does happen in the wild, but the normal state of affairs is that you need a good mom and a dad. But then she talks about, well, what's a good mom and a dad make? And a good mom and a dad is one that imposes
rules, boundaries, and limitations.
So it kind of comes back to him. So she does give him a lot of praise, but also she criticizes the fact that he's talking about he must be in the pack leader.
Okay, so he's got to us. He's got his little phrases in our head, so that's good, isn't it?
Yeah, but in the end, she says that whether you call it being a good mom and dad, or whether that means to you the same thing as imposing rules, boundaries, and limitations as the pack leader, doesn't really matter.
Huh. Okay.
So, and then in the horse chapter, the last page of the horse chapter, the last paragraph is entitled "True Communication with Horses," and she sings Pat Purley the highest of praise for two large paragraphs here. So
excellent.
Anyway, that's and if you'd like to see her on the recent TED lectures, I don't know exactly how you find that on the internet, but it's TED. What does it stand for?
I don't know. Is it TED Talk or TED.com?
Yeah, something like that. Mm-hmm. TED Talks, and she does a little 10-minute talk on there. It talks about the movie, which is just put out about her life, which is very fascinating.
Yes.
Claire Danes does just an incredible job. So that's the Temple Grandin connection. Next week we'll be answering David Roderman's question.
Well.
No, we can go on.
Yes, so Dave Roderman wrote into you asking about the differences between the techniques of flooding and the technique of approach and retreat, and how you would choose to use which and when.
Excellent question. Unfortunately, we really are out of time, so we'll have to continue this on the next podcast. However, if you'd like to submit a question of your own, please write to info@davidlichman.com, and be sure to check out my website, davidlichman.com, for information on my long-distance video coaching program.
Right, so this is Steve Miller saying goodbye to Dave Lichman in Sacramento, California, and hoping you'll join us all for the third of this series of podcasts coming soon. So, cheerio, David.
What's the opposite of ehele?
Ta-ta, old bean.
Ta-ta, old bean.
Bye for now.
Just when you think this show is terrible, something wonderful happens.
What?
It ends.